Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it, thanks. By the way, I also have a Luffy fan fiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Rikudou, the One Above All by Novus Maximus. An extraordinary man dies, Naruto of course, in one world and awakes in another. A genius unrivaled in the use of his abilities that he once thought to be mere fiction. Witness the rise of the pillar of strength that shall hold the world up with the godly power that is within all. For he is the one avatar of the six paths reborn upon this world. He will be extremely overpowered and will have Renegan and Eams. I don't own anything, adios.
Winter came relatively quick. My days were spent in the usual routine of getting up and going to work, then training, and finally going back to sleep. One interesting event that occurred was a court case against the Hero Commission by a child's rights group for violating underage employment restrictions. Apparently, these people thought that I was being unjustly pressed into becoming All Might's heir. They would not be entirely wrong, but this path in life was my own choice and they have no right to object to anything I do. It was a tiresome debacle in which I had to attend a court hearing and roast those ignorant fools for causing me problems. I somewhat feel bad for them. After all, they don't know that I've had over 40 years of life experience and it's annoying as fuck to be treated like an ignorant child, even if I am biologically only 14. After it was announced that UA was considering allowing me to graduate after only a year of schooling, there was considerable backlash from both the hero community and the civilian population against letting me out of school early. In the end, I managed to arrange a televised discussion with some important representative figures of these groups. I asked one simple question. What would you do if All Might dies tomorrow? This was a reality none in this world were truly ready to accept, and this question was somewhat of a taboo. The answer was nothing. There was nothing that could be done if All Might was to die the next day. There was no pro-hero with enough strength, charisma and popularity to take All Might's place as the new symbol of peace. Endeavor was a great hero and combatant. His track record attests to that. But he was a poor leader outside of combat. He lacked All Might's natural charisma and easygoing nature, and his entire persona seemed to be built around extreme competence. Useful in the field, but less useful against the media and popular appeal. The reverse could be said about Best Jeanist, the number 4 hero. His popularity was second only to All Might, but he lacked the combative prowess and will necessary to climb any higher in the rankings. The number 3, Hawks, was a blend of qualities that made him loved by the people and extremely competent. The only problem was that his quirk was not all that powerful, and his entire attitude flew in the face of what many considered to be the proper way a hero should act. Suffice it to say that he could not work up the same appeal that All Might had. I presented this analysis, albeit a slightly tweaked version as to sound easier on the ears of the viewers, on that show and asked them if they had anything else to add. There was none. I went further on to say that I was there just in case the worst happened and that if All Might did die, the world would not fall into chaos as every lowlife comes out of the woodwork in the absence of the symbol of peace. They could do nothing but grit their teeth and bow their heads in acceptance of my words. Still, the division was still there, and for some more extremist groups, i.e. villains, my ascensions into the ranks of pro-heroes would only serve to be yet another point of contention against society. It is a necessary evil, this media. I don't approve of how marketable heroes have become, and if the rumors going around lately are true, then neither does another person. Stain, he is an intriguing character if only because he is willing to go to such extremes to restore the traditional values of heroes into today's society. It is an admirable goal, even if it is doomed to fall flat. This society has turned the word hero into a mockery of its former self. That much I agree, especially since I originally come from a world where hero still retains its original meaning. However, I do not believe that cold-blooded murder is the answer. If that were the case, the entire world would be ruled by All for One or some other warlord. All that Stain is managing to do is rile up a few of the more idealistic villains and vigilantes and create more chaos in the world. In a way, it is this society's own fault for creating this sort of ideologically twisted person. They did that when they linked the word hero to a profession. In a way, everyone wants to be the hero of their own stories, even if only a few manage to be recognized as such. The prestige that comes with being attributed the title hero is far too great to be passed up. If you want an example of this, look no further than Akatsuki. Everything he does is in the name of recognition by his peers as being the best. It is this desire that fuels his goal to become the number 1 hero. The money is a welcome bonus, but he is after the recognition he will get for being the best. To him, saving people is always the secondary objective, right behind beating the villain. Unfortunately, this exact mentality is what poisons the word hero these days. There are those that go against this pattern, but, except for All Might and maybe Hawks, the rest are too low rank to be known by the general public, or they don't get the media exposure that pure combat-oriented heroes do. No dedicated rescue hero has ever breached the top 10, and it is likely that none ever will. These past few months have yielded some positive results, though. I managed to fly, Superman style. It's a relatively easy task actually. All I had to do is condense chakra on my body to form a cloak of sorts. After playing around with the proprieties of chakra, I stumbled upon a most unusual application. Chakra is capable of manipulating gravitons, the subatomic particle whose existence I solved in my previous life. Gravitons are the subatomic particles responsible for carrying the fundamental force of gravity. This is a huge discovery and it makes me wonder. I know that one of the 6 paths of the Rinnegan, the Diva path, can wield attractive and repulsive forces which would indicate some sort of interaction between chakra and the fundamental force of gravity. Originally, I thought that this was a Rinnegan-only power, but some experimenting later, I was proven wrong. I am still unsure about the mechanism with which chakra interacts with gravitons, but I have managed to harness this phenomenon and use it to power my flight. After lowering my mass with Earth style, of course. The type and strength of gravitic propulsion I can currently generate is still too weak to lift me up of Earth's surface under normal conditions, but with Earth style I am capable of freely manipulating my mass and thusly making such a method of propulsion viable. I am still working on some sort of telekinesis based on gravity manipulation, but so far it has proven to be unsuccessful. I suspect that the Rinnegan itself may offer a solution to this in the form of a focus for chakra-graviton interactions and a method of directing the resulting forces. What was also successful was my recreation of another iconic jutsu from Naruto, the Rasen Shuriken. It was a bitch and a half to develop, least of all because the clones kept popping every time I lost even the slightest bit wind chakra through the containment layer. I also managed to create the Rasenova, a fire-style charged Rasengan, and I have begun my theoretical work on what I call the Singularity Rasengan. This last jutsu will be the most powerful and destructive technique in my arsenal except for my dojutsu and, hopefully, 6 paths powers. What a Singularity Rasengan is, at its most basic form, is my attempt to merge chakra's gravity manipulation powers with the Rasengan and thusly creating a temporary controlled singularity at a targeted point. It's basically a throwable mini black hole. A single normal-sized Singularity Rasengan could theoretically devastate an entire island and eat up a good chunk of it. It's so powerful that the Hero Commission may have to step in to ensure that I won't be throwing these things around without prior thought. It is tempting to imagine the sheer devastation an Udama Singularity Rasengan could do, but I'm not liking the idea of being considered a human-shaped WMD by the UN. There have been cases of this happening and the result Hero 13 is considered as such because if he lost control of his quirk it would literally spell doom for this planet, so his movements are strictly monitored to ensure that he would not turn against us. Thankfully the people in charge know how to keep this discreet, and so 13 doesn't know that he's being watched and has been watched ever since he was 4. I believe that this jutsu will be up there in destructive power with the Bijudama of the 9 tails. My attempts at making the Chidori have finally begun to bear some fruit, and other recent breakthroughs in material science allow me to upgrade my armor with an extremely advanced inner layer. This inner layer is special because it contains a layer of hydrostatic gel made from a type of smart matter designed to keep me comfortable while wearing the armor for days on end. On top of that, I managed to create a secondary artificial external chakra pathway system with the use of a titanium iridium alloy that, when specially treated with certain strands of biological material extracted from my tenketsu, makes what can only be described as a chakra superconductor. This, along with something I call a chakra converter, ensured the armor's power generation necessities were met. This has been what I needed to finish my work on the Mjolnir project, thusly paying homage to my former life's nerd gods. The Mjolnir project is something that I have been working on in secret since I don't have my support license just yet, but in theory it should help boost my already immense physical strength to even greater heights, as well as provide an almost impenetrable defense due to the quantum-locked titanium chromium carbide outer armor layers that I have designed to look like a modern take on Madara Uchiha's iconic armor, even if it is black instead of red. I have designed this suit to be used in conjunction with the lightning cloak and ensured that they should mesh well together to provide an almost unbeatable defense. The lightning cloak is still a work in progress, but I have faith that after I complete it, I should be able to utilize its principles to add another layer of protection to my armor in the form of an energy shield, and then utilize this experimental shielding system as a basis for new defensive technologies for use by the general public. Another thing I'm happy about is that Izuku is getting one for all sooner than expected. It's less than 2 weeks until Christmas, and I have the idea that All Might just give it to him on Christmas Eve as a present. Well, I guess I should give Izuku the keys to the Mjolnir project and let him tinker with his own set of armor while I focus of creating man-portable and usable energy weapons. What? Did you expect me to fight with only my fists and chakra? If at all possible, I'd like to not use my full powers, just so that I can show the world that even a quirkless person can make a difference, and to display what power the future of technology holds for humanity, and also to flex on all these primitive peasants that think that their biological powers give them all the edge they need. Also, I'm a paranoid SOB that likes to stack the odds in his favor as much as possible, and my abilities are destructive as shit. Something that I don't think that I'll ever be able to fix. This makes the development of weapons capable of long-range stunning and fire support an utmost priority. It's unlikely I could ever power them with conventional power sources, so my chakra will have to be enough. Still, it would give me a huge advantage in any fight to have such weapons. An interesting fact to note is that most top 10 heroes don't actually use support equipment other than their suits, radios, a few non-lethal weapons and, in the case of Endeavor, a cooling unit. My Mjolnir is made with the goal in mid to render such reliance on mere biological ability obsolete. Although this thinking may also be due to the resentment I feel against the world for stifling Izuku's growth simply because of a biological fluke. While we're on the subject of quirkless people, I found something interesting. The standard IQ level has not grown all that much in the last 200 years, which is surprising considering the boom it underwent just before quirks appeared. So where did all those smarts go? You guessed it, in the quirkless people. I mean seriously, Izuku's got an IQ of over 200 and I'm breaching the 250 mark. Almost 25% of the scientists of I-Island are quirkless people that have made up bogus quirks just so that they don't suffer from the stigma associated with the quirkless. Honestly, humanity could have been spread out across the solar system if not for quirks. Enough of that, I can lament the existence of quirks later. Now I have to get ready for my final exams. They have been pushed forward a bit, but it's not like there's anyone else there to take them with me. After this I'll unofficially become a pro hero, something that will be made official after UA's end-of-year ceremony. You know, one thing that I should investigate is the difference between quirkless and quirked people. I have a feeling that humanity is at a precipice between two evolutionary pathways. A month later I was wrong when I thought that All Might will give Izuku his quirk by Christmas. Still, it's no problem since I get to witness the transference taking place. We're currently in my main laboratory that is hidden deep underground and away from the city. This is the place I conduct all my projects and research. You may wonder how I managed to get this done and the answer is simple: chakra. Seriously, it took a couple of jutsu and I had a perfectly excavated cavity in the side of a mountain. All the equipment was bought though third-party dealers that have been conveniently brainwashed with my Sharingan, and whatever money I needed was laundered from the accounts of the remaining Yakuza that still somehow cling to life via the drug trade and other such villain organizations. What? Did you expect me to use my own money when I can easily get a hold of the nigh unlimited funds that belong to various criminal organizations? I also made the thefts look like they have been the work of rival gangs, and thusly I started a few gang wars that I, of course, helped suppress, thus increasing my prestige and popularity all the while decreasing their resources. I never did say that I was above doing morally questionable things in pursuit of my goals. So, we're ready to do this? I asked. Yep, said Izuku, who was bouncing back and forth on the balls of his feet. I looked on amused as my brother looked around like an excited puppy, no sure if he should be more excited about the tech around him or the fact that he was receiving a quirk. So, how will this work? I asked as I began final checks on the measuring equipment. This was a tremendous opportunity to study one of the most unique quirks in the world. It's quite simple. Young Izuku will need to swallow some of my DNA and in a few hours, he will be the next bearer of One for All, said All Might in his skinny form. I turned towards him, somewhat confused. That's it? Asked Izuku, equally surprised. All Might nodded. So, what's stopping people from stealing away your quirk then? I asked. It doesn't work that way. The person who has it must willingly transfer the power to his chosen successor, otherwise the transfer won't work, said All Might. That makes sense. I would be quite a weakness if I had to be careful about my DNA all the time, said Izuku. Now, if we're done with the questions, All Might buffed up. Eat this, he said as he shoved a strand of his hair in Izuku's face. Both Izuku and I looked at him like he was some sort of retarded monkey, and All Might must have felt the true meaning of our stares if the sweat he was beginning to show was any indication. Carefully, Izuku took the strand of hair and turned it around a bit, as if asking himself how to do this. Wouldn't this have been easier using blood? I couldn't help but ask. Izuku and All Might turned white. Madara, what's wrong with you? Asked Izuku, scandalized. What? It's an honest question. I say. Izuku gave me a stare that eerily reminded me of Aizawa sensei's when I said something stupid. I didn't think my little brother was capable of this. He's spending too much time with the fake hobo. This is not one of your games, Ni-san, said Izuku seriously. I rolled my eyes. I know that. I must say that it'd be cooler if this transference happened by drinking blood rather than hair. What? Did you really expect me to do nothing all day but train and work in the lab? There's something called overdoing it, and while I may toe the line, I make it a point to never jump over it. After all, making mistakes is counterproductive. And besides, I've been a nerd all my 2 lives. Just because I happen to beat up criminals on a regular basis doesn't diminish the fact that I religiously follow the latest in gaming and that I play the sort of games that someone with no life would play. You might wonder how I have the time for all of this, and the answer to that is, shadow clones. And yes, I am perfectly aware that it's an unnecessary and irresponsible use of resources. Izuku looked at the strand of hair contemplatively, before shrugging and shoving it in his mouth, only to gag a few moments later. Thankfully I was nearby with a bottle of water which Izuku gladly drank. I stepped back and poured all the chakra I could in my Sharingan and really focused on Izuku. As soon as he had swallowed the hair, Izuku's 8 gates began to shine with an ever-increasing brightness. As the hour passed, the brightness seemed to spread across his entire body. With my Sharingan I could see the brighter parts that defined where the chakra pathways were in the body. Incredible, I breathed. What is it, young Madara? Asked All Might curiously. Izuku was the same, even if he was beginning to feel a bit uncomfortable. Understandable, seeing how I've been staring a hole in him for the past hour. One for all, you said that it's power stockpiled and passed down through generations, right? I asked. That's correct, said All Might. Did you ever find out what type of power? I asked. All Might blinked. No, I've always assumed that it's pure physical power. I giggled. Oh, how wrong you are, All Might. It's not physical power, it's nature energy, I said excitedly. Nature energy? Like what you're supposed to use for Sage Mode? Asked Izuku, rightfully shocked. I nodded. Nature energy? Sage Mode? What is this? Asked All Might, confused. I turned to him. Nature energy is all around us. It's produced by every living being on this planet and it interacts with humans in very special ways. All the mutation quirks you see every day are a byproduct of a person unknowingly trying to become a sage. That is a being that can borrow nature energy from the world and use it to increase their physical abilities tremendously. You know, All Might, before today I always wondered just what type of power was one for all, because if it was chakra like mine, you would have felt some difference and maybe found some other applications for it, I said. So, what does it mean, Ni-san? Asked Izuku. It means, little brother, that you can become the only one on this world that will ever be able to hope to ever challenge me, I said with a smile. Izuku looked at me with wide eyes. Really? He asked in a whispered tone. Really, I confirmed with a nod. Izuku looked lost in thought for a moment before he looked at me with fire in his eyes and said, I'll beat you one day. I grinned savagely, something that Izuku reciprocated. I'm looking forward to when that day comes. Meanwhile, in the background, All Might was hiding behind a computer console, crying and asking himself, why me? Why do I have to deal with the 2 most overpowered children in the world? I'm not even their father. After a few hours, the transfer of power finished and I finally got to take an in-depth look at One for All, something that I hadn't dared do while it was in All Might due to the latter's crippled state. Izuku was currently lying on a table shirtless and connected to all sorts of sensors as I used a diagnostic jutsu on him. The jutsu was part of my attempt to recreate medical ninjutsu. The recreation was partially successful, but I'll need years to refine it to something even resembling competency by Naruto standards. The jutsu still required machines to interpret the results. Find anything? Asked Izuku in a tone that was equally bored and anxious. I don't know, it seems that there is something else that was transferred with the quirk factor, I said. Huh? What do you mean? Asked Izuku. Well, the quirk factor latched onto your gate of opening, that's normal, but there is another thing that came with it and latched onto the gate of view. Honestly, the best I can describe it as is a condensed ball of yin chakra with something at its core, I said. Izuku looked confused, but I couldn't blame him, I was confused as well. The quirk had formed a secondary chakra nexus next to his original one that stored in it tremendous amounts of natural energy. More than it should be physically possible, in fact. A chakra nexus is like a pool where chakra gathers when not in use by an active chakra wielder. Most people don't have one because their quirk factor serves as one, but quirkless people have nexuses. I think I just found that the best way to jumpstart another person's chakra production is to simply boost this nexus from the outside, and in a way that's exactly what One for All had done. Izuku's nexus was growing, but it was horribly imbalanced. Never minded that, you need to start meditating and small-scale chakra building exercises, I said. Izuku looked surprised. He had attempted these exercises before when we attempted to undock his chakra the natural way. Why? I can't use chakra like you do. Well, now you might be able to, eventually, seeing as One for All is just a big vessel full of nature energy, I said. Izuku didn't look convinced. I sighed. Look, this is dangerous stuff we're dealing with here. Natural energy isn't meant to be used as a substitute for normal chakra. You need to balance it with your own yin-yang energies if you want to prevent damaging your body. Right now, you've barely begun production of your own chakra stores, and even attempting to use One for All will probably have severe consequences on your body. If you try to use it now, you could risk ripping your chakra pathways to shreds, since they're literally not ready to use this kind of power, and thus crippling your ability to use chakra in the future. Be thankful that One for All's quirk factor does all the heavy lifting in the balancing department. Now all you need to do is give it the materials it needs to work with. So, what should I do? Asked Izuku. I looked at him. Izuku looked depressed and I couldn't help but sigh. This was his dream. He had trained for this for months on end, and I basically told him that he had to start again from zero. Come on, up you go, I said as I helped him up, disconnected the sensors and handed him a t-shirt I had lying around. Since we were basically identical, save for the haircut and hair color, we shared our wardrobe a lot when we were kids. Thankfully we haven't diverged much in body structure, especially since Izuku's been a bit slow on the muscle building side of things. When we were young it was a convenient way to save money since we weren't born into a rich house. Sure, we had enough for anything we may want or need, but even so, most of the money was spent at my training. I placed my hands on his shoulder and looked into his eyes. "We'll get through this, Izuku, don't be discouraged. I've already done all the legwork. All you have to do is follow my lead and you'll be able to use some of your power in no time, okay?" Izuku gave me the little smile that told me that I've gotten my point across. "Okay, good, now let's go and celebrate." February came quick. Izuku was making progress, very good progress. He was now able to use One for All at 7% of its total capacity and he was steadily building himself a suitable reserve of chakra. It occurred to me that I've never actually written down anything that I discovered about chakra, how it's formed, how it's used, and that was problematic. If things keep progressing as they are now, in a couple of years Izuku may be able to use chakra as I do and that makes me very happy. That is if he doesn't do something stupid like All Might. After my discoveries the day Izuku got his quirk, I went to work to find out why did All Might not discover chakra. After all, you need your own body's yin-yang energies to balance out whatever you draw from One for All's power bank, since that's what it is. A big ball of power that has grown through the growth of a person's chakra reserves. This is also the reason why All Might was the first to reach such power levels out of all of One for All's inheritors. Previously, One for All would boost the quirks of its recipients by injecting nature energy through their quirk factor and then into their 8 gates and only then their bodies, thusly diluting the nature energy with their own yin-yang energies and ensuring it didn't hurt them much. However, doing this meant that it didn't really get anything in return and OFA's power bank was forced to grow on its own or with very little assistance. This is what made it easy for all the previous inheritors to wield it. That changed with All Might. Since he was quirkless, he had his own body's natural chakra nexus and One for All latched onto that. This massive influx of energy enlarged his nexus which then demanded that his body fill it up with its own energies that when combined with the natural energy coming from One for All boosted a person's physical capabilities even further, achieving a sort of artificial sage mode. As All Might continued to train both physically and mentally, his chakra reserves grew on their own, drawing more power from One for All which in turn drew more power from the energy around him. This led to a vicious circle that enlarged both All Might's own chakra pool and One for All's nexus size at a tremendous rate. This ended with All Might's fight with All for One when he destroyed All Might's stomach. The physical damage was so great that his body could no longer replenish the same quantity of chakra that he was used to and thusly his main nexus began to shrink and struggled to contain the energy flowing into it from One for All. This being said, you might be wondering why did All Might not discover chakra as I know it? The answer is simple. That damned moron destroyed his chakra pathway system when he was learning to use One for All, thusly making him no more able to use chakra than Rock Lee. The first few uses, I'm told, were particularly devastating, making All Might tear his muscles apart and even breaking his bones. What's worse is that he continued to use it without checking to see why this was happening to him and why it didn't to the other users. The answer is simple. The other users had their quirk factor to take the brunt of the energy and whatever physical boost came from using One for All was only secondary. All Might, however, used it as an offensive and defensive tool and that wrecked the entire system of pathways in his body. I'm fortunate that I stopped Izuku from using this power without first preparing his own chakra pathways to handle it. I'm still worried. If he goes over his limit, then he too will wreck his chakra pathways and become unable to use ninjutsu. I made sure to imprint that onto him. I hope it sticks, but I'm not taking any chances. Now that he has the power, it seems that Izuku has grown somewhat moronic. Or it may be that his desire to help people was simply suppressed by his rational mind knowing that he couldn't do anything even if he wanted to. Nowadays it's a different story. Izuku has made consistent and impressive progress in his use of chakra to boost his body's abilities, even if the deeper mysteries of chakra continue to elude him and will probably continue to do so for years to come. This leads me neatly to the reason why I'm behaving like a psychotic obsessive stalker that has gone so far as to infiltrate the UA entrance exam. Seriously, crouching on the roof of UA with high-powered binoculars stuck to my face and wrapped in a cloak made for urban camouflage wasn't how I imagined I would spend the day before my graduation ceremony. I did manage to see Izuku's reunion with Katsuki, though it seemed that beside a glare Katsuki didn't even acknowledge Izuku's presence. Well, so long as he doesn't try to murder Izuku, everything will be fine. After all, I can't keep Izuku wrapped up in bubble wrap for the rest of his life. If he wants to be a hero, then he has to know how to get along with his more problematic colleagues without murdering them. I shook my head. This was not the time to dream about disemboweling Endeavor and strangling him with his own intestines, even if it would make so many of my headaches go away. That guy has become increasingly angrier over the last 6 months and I think that it stems from some kind of one-sided rivalry with All Might. He's just pissed that All Might's retiring as the #1 hero and that he didn't get to take that title from him. And if I have a say in this, he won't get his title. Ever. The next few hours were boring, as that was when the written exam was happening, but they weren't unproductive. I sneaked into the storage bay for the robots that this year's UA entrance exam will use and imputed a slight modification into the zero-pointer. Izuku was too weak to take on one of those and win, all the while worrying about his fellow examinees. So, I ensured that my idiot little brother didn't encounter such a situation, and if he did and tried to blow it away with a full-strength punch from One for All, I would step in and disable his power. It will be painful and uncomfortable, but then again so would a broken arm and destroyed chakra pathways. I'm not a fool. I know that there is a distinct possibility that the government may want to brainwash Izuku to ensure his loyalty in the event that I go rouge. This is a good thing, in a way. A person with an active chakra system is neurologically more resilient than one without, and therefore less likely to be influenced by mind control quirks or devices. Also, I know that Izuku won't turn against me unless I do something truly unspeakably horrible. I have no such intention since I do possess a moral compass. But the potential still remains that I could be the greatest threat to this nation should I turn rouge, and thusly Izuku will get the best food, the best trainers, and the rarest of opportunities to grow more and more powerful until he is a match for me. Izuku already knows what is required to beat me. I made certain of that. You may ask why I did this, and my answer is simple. If I discovered chakra, what's to stop others from discovering it as well? Or worse, what if an Otsutsuki shows up one day and I fall in battle? After all, I can't assume that the Narutoverse is all fiction now, can I? I already use their power with their knowledge, so there is a remote possibility that it exists in another reality. Enough of that. Now it's time to resume my obsessive stalking. God, I need help. I never imagined that I'll be reduced to a mere stalker when I have such vast resources of cheap robot minions, but what can you do? Family is family. The exam went on, and it seemed that my worries were unfounded. Izuku made short work of the robots in his area, and my backdoor in UA's computers tells me that he has the highest villain point, beating Katsuki by 10 and the highest rescue points so far. After all, you can't really trust a machine to judge what makes a good rescue and award points based on that judgment. It's also a method of screening the students to see which ones are all talk and which ones actually deserve to be a hero. I make my way stealthily through the corridors of UA when LL from Aizawa. "Hello, sensei, how can I help you?" I said, or more like typed. Special software would translate that into speech for me. "You can get your ass to the observation room, problem child. I know that you're in the building," said Aizawa. This brought me up short. He knew? That's supposed to be impossible. No, improbable, more like it. Perhaps Nezu had some spyware embedded into my gear and computers. I'll check. My body flickered to the room in question and entered without knocking. Aizawa was unsurprised to see me so soon. I entered the darkly lit room filled. Almost every teacher from UA was here, looking at the wall of screens and taking notes on what they were seeing. "So, why did you want me here?" I asked again. "We wouldn't put it past you to meddle in the exam, problem child. This is just insurance against that," said Aizawa. My face remained carefully blank as I arched an eyebrow at him. "Do you truly think so lowly of me?" I asked with mock hurt. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "Hey, you know me so well, sensei, but what I'm doing isn't so much cheating as it is ensuring that Izuku doesn't hurt himself," I said. This drew the attention of the other teachers. I could sense that they were curious, but they were trying to be stealthy. Not that it worked. Aizawa's face hardened. "Will it be a problem?" he asked. I shook my head. "So long as he doesn't try to push himself too much in one go, he should be fine. In a couple of years, he'll have his full power at his disposal, but until then he's limited to low percentages of that power. If he overdoses it, he could become crippled for life and be unable to access higher levels of power later on," I said. The other teachers don't know about OFA and would assume that Izuku got a slightly worse-off version of my own power. I need them to be aware not to push Izuku too much. My little brother may be smart, but he is lacking in common sense. I turn my attention to the wall of monitors, and immediately a few candidates catch my attention. A kid with engines coming out of his calves. Must be an Ida then. He seems to be doing fine, though his technique is strangely lacking. One would expect this kid to be a near master in Taekwondo in order to make full use of his quirk's combative advantages. Another one that caught my eye was a kid with a tail. I can immediately tell that one's a martial artist. It's a shame that his quirk prohibits him from entering in any sort of competition worth mentioning. Finally, I turn my attention to Katsuki. His battle instinct is impressive. "That kid is quite something," said Aizawa, as if reading my thoughts. "He is, in a certain sense. Though I worry what will happen if his worldview is too damaged by outside forces," I said. I sensed Aizawa stiffen next to me. He got my message then. Good. He will need to watch Katsuki closely to ensure that he doesn't become a loose cannon. Otherwise Katsuki may just come across an accident. While not commonly known, the Hero Commission keeps a close watch on its elite heroes. It does this because those are usually the most powerful people in the country, even besting the military's quirked Special Forces unit. If there is even the slightest chance that one of those heroes might fly off the rails and become a warlord, Then certain specialized task groups will take care of that person, either by outright murder or by crippling them enough that they can no longer work or pose a threat. That is the fate that awaits anyone that is deemed a threat to the continued existence of the world as we know it. Thankfully, though these task groups work in the shadows, so they don't really interact with the underground world of crime. It is one of the reasons why I was so careful in the beginning when I had just unlocked chakra. I can't put it past the hero commission to kidnap and brainwash children and mold them into their personal attack dogs. "Hey, look at this kid, he's about to take on the zero-pointer," yelled someone. My head snapped to the screen so fast that it nearly gave me whiplash. In an instant my Sharingan was activated and I watched as Izuku charged full tilt at a zero-pointer. A pointer that was about to squash a girl. God damn it, Izuku, you had one job and even this you fail. I prepared. Chakra was sent screaming throughout my entire body as it was changed into its lightning nature state. Blue sparks flew across my skin, in a way eerily familiar to Izuku's full cowl. The teachers could feel the power that was building up inside of me. Of this I had no doubt. I readied for a substitution in case I needed to evacuate an examinee from the danger zone. I watched with bated breath as Izuku reached the zero-pointer, but instead of a giant flare of energy that I was expecting, Izuku's power remained relatively constant as he hurtled towards the girl. With my Sharingan I could see him picking her up before kicking it up a notch and speeding out of there in a flash of green lightning. I released a breath I didn't know I was holding as I powered down. A few moments later the horn sounded, and the exam ended. I left without a word. Half an hour later I was waiting for Izuku outside the gates of Uo with a chauffeur-driven car. What? All Might's handing me Might Tower and all his agency's assets anyways, might as well make some use of the corporate car fleet. I was dressed in a white form-fitting hoodie and black pants. On my right I had my latest masterpiece. My sword. It was a straight single-edged short sword ideal for close-quarters combat. It was linked to my belt by a length of chain that was connected to its sheath, leaving it to dangle along my right leg right flank. All in all, I looked like a badass, and by the looks the girls were giving me as I sat on the hood of the Rolls Royce I came in I can quite definitely say that I'm also hot. When Izuku came out of UA, you could say that the difference between the two of us were those of night and day. Izuku looked like a kid. A cute kid at that, while I looked like a young adult. Especially the hair. I'll never understand how Izuku can stand to have such long and messy hair. "So, how'd it go?" I asked once I came to a stop next to him. Gee good. Can we leave?" asked Izuku quite pathetically. I looked around, and it seemed that we've drawn quite a crowd. To my enhanced senses I could hear the whispers of, "Who is this kid?" that were going around. "Sure, I brought the car," I said with a smile if it was possible. Izuku became even more horrified when he saw that I brought the most expensive car I could find in the garage under Might Tower. I didn't let Izuku to recover as I shoved him in the car, before removing my sword and going in the car myself. Once the door closed, I turned to Izuku with a shit-eating grin on my face. "So how was the exam?" I asked as we set off. "How was the exam? That's what you ask me? Why did you make such a commotion, Ni-san?" asked Izuku. I raised an eyebrow. "The moment you speak your last name, people all over the country will know that you're related to me, so why hide it? Especially when it comes with such benefits," I said motioning at the car. "I don't want to be known as the rich kid," mumbled Izuku. "Ah, I see. He didn't want to get ostracized because of his difference in status." "Don't worry, that won't happen. So how did you do?" I asked. This seemed to cheer him up. "I did great. I got 88 villain points," said Izuku. "The highest of them all," I confirmed. This stopped Izuku short. "Even higher than," he began asking. "By 10, I replied. The car lapsed into silence. "You know what, let's go and pick up All Might from the office and have a celebratory dinner," I said. Izuku immediately brightened up at the thought of All Might. Sure, normally there was a week of delay between taking the exams and receiving the results. Thankfully, me being me saved Izuku the trouble of worrying if he made it or not. This allowed us to focus all our energy tackling a very big problem. "Ah, fuck. This is impossible. How the hell are we supposed to fold 3-dimensional spacetime into a 2-dimensional space?" yelled Izuku. It may surprise you to know, but Izuku can get really foul-mouthed when he's angry. Honestly, I blame it on all the time he spent with Katsuki. "Oi, language, you little fucker. I told you this shit ain't easy, so sit your sorry ass down and run over those equations again." "There must be something that we missed," I yelled back. "Okay, so it may be a small case of the pot calling the kettle black, but in my defense I happen to come pre-packaged with 3 decades worth of life experience. Now, you might be wondering what it is we're doing here, and to that I will answer with just one word. Fuinjutsu. So far in my experiments I discovered that when in certain situations, chakra works just like a qubit. That's what is used to describe bits of information in a quantum computer. A quantum bit, if you will. So, in theory it means that chakra has the ability to both store and transmit information, not something very hard to deduce. The trick is finding a link between this and the Fuinjutsu that I know of when a revelation struck me. I don't need to. Since the beginning I researched chakra completely independent from any kind of preconceptions about its mechanics. Oh, sure, I knew about its different effects, but the methods I used to attain these effects are fundamentally different than those from the Narutoverse. For example, in the Narutoverse, if someone wanted to learn a jutsu, all they would need to do is memorize the hand signs, have a basic understanding of what the effect of the jutsu will be, have the necessary power and chakra control, and they would be able to perform that jutsu in a few tries. It would not be perfect, but it would suffice. This obviously excludes the more complicated jutsu, but for the average chunin and jonin, this was how it was done. This is how the Sharingan can copy jutsu. This was how Naruto learned his signature shadow clone jutsu. My jutsu are fundamentally different. They can't be used in this plug-and-play style because the method those effects are created with is different from the one used in the Narutoverse. What I did was use hand signs to focus and direct the flow of chakra that has already been changed into its corresponding nature and power output for the desired effect. This has a side bonus of requiring relatively few hand signs compared to their Narutoverse equivalents. In a way you could say that this was the logical way to create jutsu and was in all likelihood how Hagoromo used jutsu-like abilities. Knowing this I can only respect Indra Otsutsuki even more, because he didn't only manage to create jutsu for himself, but established the basics for a universal system of jutsu that remained standing for more than 1,000 years and was so good that no one ever thought of using a different system. With this in mind, Fuinjutsu should be treated much the same, so I roped Izuku into helping me. I need his in-depth understanding and expertise in quantum-based computing, something that wasn't that widespread in my world, but something that exists in almost every university in this one. After I created my photonic computers I didn't even look into quantum computing, something that is proving to be a big mistake on my part. Quantum supercomputers are extremely powerful machines and except for the basics on how they operate, there isn't much out there that would help an independent person build one. This being said, I have access to several of those supercomputers, so it was easy enough to snatch the blueprints and the necessary research data without other people knowing about it. It was something that Izuku asked me to do when we were 12 since he was interested in how they operated after seeing me build a primitive photonic computer at home. So here we are, two prodigy geniuses trying to figure out how to build a miniature two-dimensional quantum computer hardwired to do a single specific task. The difficulty isn't in creating the circuit lines, that was rather easily achieved with a jutsu that literally burns chakra into the desired pathways, preparing them for use as fuinjutsu markings. The trick is figuring out how to create these effects in the first place. We've already been working on this for the better part of 6 days and in that time we managed to create several basic fuinjutsu. A small low-level shield barrier that I will be inscribing onto our armor along with some booster nodes. It's weak, but it could save our lives in a pinch. Several different seals that convert regular chakra into elemental chakra. Izuku managed to tweak the seals in order to draw power directly from one for all nature energy power bank and route them through the chakra pathway network in the Mjolnir armor suit, thusly bypassing the need to temper OFA's nature energy with his own chakra and thusly decreasing the strain on his body while in combat. Though this only works with seals already inscribed in his armor, such as the barrier seals. For anything else he will need to do it in a laboratory setting with specialized equipment that draws power from one for all and artificially tempers it. Besides that, I created a few directional seals to direct elemental chakra for use in laboratory tests. Hopefully with this I can break through the wall I encountered when researching more advanced elemental abilities. If he can modify them, Izuku's combat prowess will rise exponentially, even if he will most likely have to carry a stack of pre-written seals into battle. Using seals like this I was able to deduce the ration of wind and fire release chakra necessary to produce plasma release, a more powerful variant of scorch release. It won't be long until I manage to find the correct proportions for dust release and wood release. Another very important seal we invented is a restraining seal. When in use it would prevent the yin and yang energies of a person from combining in their quirk factor or chakra nexus, thusly rendering them powerless. Of course, a person with an active chakra system would just burn through it because it's not deigned to handle such people. That is also a security feature to ensure that the seal can't be turned against us. All the work we've done so far is stored on paper. Izuku was adamant that we couldn't trust our computer's defense systems in protecting something as valuable as this, so in order to not take any chances with this, we would need to carry the research notes with us wherever we went. In this world of quirks, we couldn't be sure that there wasn't someone that can render even the most secure vaults useless, but there was a slight problem with keeping all our work with us. Said research notes were in several stacks a meter high and by the way we were working it didn't appear as if we would stop anytime soon. So that's why for the past 2 days we've been banging our heads against this problem. Now for anyone knowledgeable in Narutoverse lore, you would know that this is easily solved with the use of a storage seal. Problem is that we don't know how to make said seal. Our fuinjutsu is based on the known laws of physics since using it requires one to be aware of how things work in order to change them. It's a simple matter of the science not being advanced enough yet to do this. An explosion followed by screaming and a stream of curse words that would make Katsuki blush came from the testing chamber. I sighed and went inside only to find Izuku covered in soot and attempting to punch his way through the wall that wasn't as scorched as the rest. "Oi, Izuku, calm down," I called out. I reached for a towel and handed it to him. "Thanks," mumbled Izuku. "Hey, why are you looking so down, little brother?" I asked. The answer was obvious, but I need to comfort him emotionally. Izuku never dia, he tends to bottle everything up until it destroys him from the inside. "Sorry, it's just I thought that I had it, ni-san. Any variant of fuinjutsu that messes with space-time is a pain and a half to develop. It will take us much more than a couple of days to figure it out. Heck, what we've done so far could be considered miraculous by most people's standards. This being said, you know that it will go faster if we use the base's computers to run simulations," I said. "No, we can't let our research notes unsecured," said Izuku vehemently. I blinked. "What's with the paranoia, little brother?" Izuku didn't speak. He pointed his right hand at the center of the training ground and made a motion with his fingers as if he was gripping something. A moment later, a green circle filed with a multitude of green lines inside appeared between his fingers. In an instant my Sharingan was active and I saw in slow motion as a stream of fire erupted from the small disc and struck the opposite wall with enough power to scorch it. I gaped at it. "That was fuinjutsu, wasn't it?" I asked. Izuku nods. I have no words. I thought that only special fuinjutsu like the Flying Thunder God Guiding Thunderjutsu and the Sumjutsu could spread over thin air. "Yeah, I discovered that when I used Sage Chakra to power the seal creation jutsu it can materialize in thin air," said Izuku proudly. "Though I still need to use normal chakra to activate the seal and provide it with power. I am beyond words. Of course, Izuku is a sage, how could I be so foolish? Whatever you call it, merging one's own energies with nature energy and being able to use the resulting energy makes you a sage in my eyes. Of course, Izuku's not that powerful, since he barely has the chakra levels I had when I was 5, but merging that chakra with nature energy allows him to boost himself, physically at least, in a whole other league. And with this discovery in a year I can be confident that Izuku will be able to take on the likes of Endeavor and win." I smirked at him. "So should I be calling you a fuinjutsu master yet?" I teased. Izuku sputtered, losing his former bravado, and blushed. "Mean ni-san." I laughed and threw an arm over his shoulder. "Now come on, I think it's time I taught you how to cling to vertical surfaces with chakra." Izuku looked at me and smiled. I grinned back and Izuku lost his smile. He tried to remove my arm from his shoulder, but I held on tight. "Nay, ni-san, can you let me go?" asked Izuku nervously. "Nah, we've got training to do. After all, you wouldn't want to pass out from chakra exhaustion at school, would you?" I said. Izuku's cries were heard throughout the complex for the next day, and now there's a distinctly Izuku-shaped indentation in the training area's floor. Before I started work on my fuinjutsu projects, I sent a clone on a very important mission. The day after Izuku's entrance exam was my graduation ceremony and my official induction into the ranks of pro heroes. It was a big party with a lot of fanfare around me. Of course, All Might made an appearance and congratulated me personally. I could tell that he was proud of me and what I achieved. Almost every top 10 hero was there, even Endeavor, and this time he seemed to have brought a tag along. It was a kid, about my age, with heterochromatic eyes and hair. The most distinctive feature about him was the burn mark over his blue eye. This was interesting, and it appears that All Might wants to go and meet with him. I politely excused myself from making small talk with the pro hero Ingenium and make my way to All Might. Even if I was a bit smaller in height than the adults, I was in no way less imposing, even when I stood next to All Might. Since every hero was in his costume, that meant that I was currently wearing the Mjolnir MK. Armor I created in secret over the last few months. Compared to all the other heroes, I looked dressed for war. "Endeavor, thanks for coming, it's been such a long time since we last talked," said All Might jovially. "All Might, this is my son, Shoto," replied Endeavor curtly. "Endeavor Pro, I see that you've arrived. I must say, I wasn't expecting you to come. And who is this?" I said, making my presence known. I gave the kid named Shoto a cursory glance. Shoto bowed respectfully in greeting after a glare from his father. "Rikudou Pro, I am Shoto Todoroki," said the kid. My Sharingan flashed as I observed him in depth. Oddly enough, he seemed to be favoring his left leg. This spoke of an injury. Probably a training-related accident, after all the same has happened to Izuku and I a few times. "Ah, you've raised quite a son, Endeavor. I heard that he has taken the recommended exam for UA," said All Might. "Shoto is my greatest creation, All Might. Though I see that yours isn't lacking either," bit back Endeavor with a blank look on his face. "Creation? Is this how he speaks about his son?" I observed Shoto again. He seemed to be looking at his father with ill-disguised contempt. This I must look into. It's quite possible that something sinister is going on in the Todoroki family. "Is that so?" I asked with a carefully blank face. "Well then, I'm looking forward to this year's sport festival. After all, it would be quite embarrassing if you would recreate your loss at my hands. Endeavor. What was it? Ah, yes. I remember a single fire attack from me that melted half the training arena and knocked you unconscious, I said nonchalantly. It was a most blatant act of provocation, but I had my reasons. Shoto's eyes widened at what I said, and I could sense his anger at my words combined with astonishment. Meanwhile, Endeavor fumed at the reminder of his defeat. He took a step forward and opened his mouth to say something, but immediately stopped when my eyes flashed red and the fabled Sharingan was activated. Endeavor was forced to look away. Among the pro-hero circles, I disseminated some information about my eyes. Now it's common knowledge that to look directly into my eyes is tantamount suicide, even among villains. Of course, since most villains rely on their quirk so much, they can't really fight all that well, and when you add to that the necessity of not looking into my eyes when combating me, their chances drop to an almost zero level of success against me. After all, I'm not arrogant enough to say that I'm unbeatable, just very hard to beat. Now, some may say that letting such information loose may cause me problems, but actually the reverse is true. Even without my ability to cast visual genjutsu, I'm still more than capable of beating anyone in hand-to-hand combat. These days, not even All Might can stand against me. All Might cleared his throat. Well, I think it's time for us to go. Endeavor Pro, have a nice evening. All Might hurried to take me away, and when we were far enough he turned to me. Why did you antagonize Endeavor, Madara? To see how Shoto would react, I answered. This surprised All Might, whose expression darkened after that. Do you think something's going on in his family? He asked. Hey, it seemed that All Might wasn't a muscle-bound idiot after all. I don't know. I'll ask Izuku after he gets to know Shoto a bit better. But if that does happen to be the truth, my eyes flashed red once again. Well, let's just say that it won't be pretty. To most people, Keigo Takami was known as the number 3 pro-hero Hawks. He was the carefree winged hero that was too fast for anyone bar All Might to catch when it came to hero work. However, behind this facade of nonchalance laid a keen mind. When he heard that the new golden boy of the hero community was graduating, at age 15 and after only a year of high school, he was of course intrigued. Thanks to his unique position in the Hero Commission, he was able to access Madara Midoriya's restricted files, and what he saw left him impressed. Hawks has seen Madara's many feats of power, but he couldn't have guessed that behind that power laid such a genius mind. He had long wished to meet Madara in person, and now he appeared to have been granted the chance. The dinner party was a high-end affair, and tell that by looking at most of the guests there. Only a few members of the Hero Commission were invited, along with the families of some pro-heroes. The rest were heroes dressed in their usual hero costumes. During the beginning of the party, at the actual graduation ceremony, he got to lay his eyes on Madara in person for the first time. Never before in his life had Hawks met such a person. Even standing beside All Might himself, Hawks could feel the pure power that seemed to flow from Madara, making him look that much more imposing. As if being dressed in gleaming black and red armor wouldn't do that. As Madara made his speech, Hawks couldn't help but feel drawn to his words. Madara oozed charisma in a way no one besides All Might could. For a moment, Hawks wondered if there might be some truth to that theory. As Madara mingled with the guests, Hawks kept up observing the young man. Madara moved with a grace and poise that spoke of years of hard training and an unbelievable amount of experience for one so young. Not even he was that experienced at his age, even with all the training the Hero Commission put him through. Hawks managed to observe how Madara provoked Endeavor. That action was puzzling. Besides that fact that Endeavor was colder than usual towards Might Tower Agency, there wasn't any need for Madara to be this antagonistic. Just as Hawks moved to defuse the situation, All Might stepped in and broke up the discussion. Still, Hawks approached Madara. When he came to about 10 meters from Madara, the world suddenly stopped. Impressive, isn't it? The power of the human mind, said Madara behind Hawks. Hawks turned to him, still bewildered at what happened. How? Don't worry, this is merely an illusion so that we can converse privately, said Madara. So, this was the power of Madara's Sharingan. What a tremendous ability, and to think I didn't even notice him locking eyes with me, thought Hawks. So, what did you wish to talk about? Asked Hawks. Madara smiled tightly. Be a good dog and let your masters know that I don't bow as easily as All Might, said Madara. Hawks was stunned and more than a little offended. Excuse me? I guess, you won't believe me without proof then? Said Madara. In that moment the scenery changed. Instead of a mass of frozen people, Hawks was greeted to the sight of a destroyed city. He could quite clearly see the main headquarters of the Hero Commission in ruins before him. Hawks was so shocked that he took a step back. What is this? This is the aftermath of a battle for someone at my level. Now, I'm not showing you this to threaten you, quite the opposite really. I want the Hero Commission to understand that our relationship is a partnership, not an employment agreement. We will of course maintain the facade for the media, but that will be the true nature of our relationship, said Madara. The kid seemed nonplussed that he had just threatened the number 3 hero in the Hero Commission. Hawks gathered his wits. What do you want? Access to the Hero Commission's classified archives. I expect a phone call from your bosses in a week, said Madara. And if they don't call you, asked Hawks. He couldn't let this kid walk all over him and the commission. Madara smiled grimly and looked at him with those blood-red Sharingan of his. Well, then I suppose that a change of management will be needed. Suddenly the world snapped back to normal and Madara was nowhere to be seen. In a hidden laboratory under Jakku Hospital, a secret meeting was taking place. How goes the progress on the new weapons, my friend? Very good. Since we had to accelerate the procedure, they aren't as carefully constructed, but they are more powerful. It's wise to be mindful of the high ends. I haven't quite yet managed to fully suppress the host's ego or correct all behavioral issues. Don't worry, it will do for now. How's the search going? We're closing in on Chisaki. I can't wait to get my hands on his quirk. It's such a shame that a quirk such as that was born in such an ungrateful body. Yes, a shame indeed. Fortunately, it won't be long before we remedy that injustice and I will get restored to my previous state. Isn't that dangerous? What if the plan fails? The plan has changed. I will need a great deal of strength to deal with All Might's brat and steal his quirk. In the unlikely event that I fail, will you know what to do? Of course, my lord. Life had been very strange for Katsuki over the past year. First, Deku left school and allegedly took an exam to graduate from middle school into high school. Odd thing was that his mother wouldn't tell him where Deku was, so Katsuki assumed that he was shipped off to Nerd Island to slave away at a support company or whatever. Of course, there was his brother, Madara. There wasn't a single day where Katsuki could walk out of the house without learning about the latest adventure of All Might's heir. That title pissed him off badly, but it didn't really matter. He would climb up to the #1 spot even if he had to do it over Madara's defeated form instead of All Might's. The months passed quickly and eventually the UA entrance exam came for his generation. Katsuki was pissed that Madara managed to graduate from UA in a single year, but he just decided to set it as his standard to beat. What he didn't expect was meeting Deku on the way to UA. At first he was stunned by Deku's presence at the exam. He wanted to go and question him so badly that he thought that he might just explode, but Katsuki kept his impulses reined in. This was not the time to go on a murderous rampage, so he settled for glaring at him. He didn't see Deku after that. Then again, it was likely that the nerd just went to apply to the support course. After all, the support course of UA was a prestigious one, and as much as he hated to say it, Deku had a good head on his shoulder for research. A week later the results came and Katsuki's world came crashing down upon him. He wasn't the first, he was second. Right after Deku, who beat him by 10 villain points and close to 60 rescue points. When school started he got to see Deku again. The nerd walked confidently in the classroom, his classroom, and was instantly assaulted by the stuck-up private school kid and a round-faced girl. Deku hadn't changed much, behavior-wise at least. He was still the same shy nerd he'd always been. Katsuki was tempted to have a little explosive talk with Deku, but he yet again reined himself in. Despite his hooligan-like appearance, Katsuki cared deeply about his school record. It wouldn't do to be reprimanded for starting a fight before the year even started. It didn't matter what pebbles air in his class, after all he's the strongest of them all. That view would change once their homeroom teacher, a homeless-looking guy called Aizawa, took them out for the so-called quirk apprehension test. Katsuki thought that it was finally his time to shine. After all, none of these other extras had a quirk to match his own. Surely. He was wrong, so very wrong. First there was that ice-hot kid that beat him. Then there was that girl that can make shit out of nothing that also beat him. But worst of all was Deku. He beat everyone. This wasn't supposed to happen. Deku was quirkless, powerless. Sure, he may have some skill with martial arts and he's a genius nerd, but that doesn't mean that he can simply bypass his lack of a quirk. What's more is that Deku was showing off feats that couldn't have been achieved without a quirk. Somehow he was super fast and super strong, though he did give off that strange green lightning effect when he used his powers. Katsuki dearly wished to go up to that nerd and get his answers from the source, but as he willed his body forward, something stopped him. It was something terrifying, the kind of terror that would root you on the spot. Katsuki could envision those bright red eyes with little dots swirling inside the pupil looking down at him. He wanted to be angry, to rage and fight against this terror, but his body wouldn't listen. It seemed that even after 10 years, he could not go against the warning Madara gave him on that fateful day. Aizawa looked at his class. He just finished with his test and it seemed that this year's lot was full of potential. It was now up to him to guide that potential. He could see his class's reaction to the quirk apprehension test, and while most were falling into the norm, there were 2 that did not. This, however, was not unexpected. After all, he would be worried if they did fall within the norm. Bakugo Katsuki and Todoroki Shoto, one the second highest scorer in the entrance exam, the other a recommended student and son of Endeavor. Both had met Madara Midoriya and both had seen the measure of his power. It was only natural that they be curious about Madara's brother that was rumored to have the same power as him, even if it wasn't true. Still, even with a mere fraction of his full potential power, Izuku Midoriya proved himself a worthy opponent. Aizawa freely admits that the tests were skewed towards those who possessed physical enhancement quirks. But keen mind could overcome these tests even with a non-augmentative quirk. After all, the purpose of this test was to weed out those that were physically inept or mentally incompetent. The following day, Aizawa watched All Might's first official class. As you would expect, all the students were hyped up for some action with their favorite hero. Normally it would seem moronic to throw the students into a simulated situation such as the one All Might had planned, but Aizawa was there to step in case anything bad happened. He would have preferred if Madara was there as well, to supervise the blonde fool. After all, he was the only one that could literally beat some sense into him. The battles weren't anything special, with the possible exception of Todoroki's feat of freezing the building the enemy team was in. It was a bold decision, and Aizawa would have given it a full score, if it was a 1 versus 1 or a 1 versus multiple type of engagement. In the current situation, Todoroki's decision was foolish. If the enemy team had a quirk that could work as a suitable counter to Todoroki's ice, the kid would be in big trouble, and because he turned the building into a glacier, he rendered his own teammate useless. Another battle that drew Aizawa's attention was little Midoriya's fight with Bakugo. The explosive kid was out for blood, that was obvious. It was somewhat surprising that Midoriya did not give in to Bakugo's overcompetitive nature. From what Madara had told him, Bakugo was still living a childish dream, one that all children have but are broken out of by the time they reach middle school. In Bakugo's case, the school only fed this false image, and although Madara had a hand in staying Bakugo's more violent actions, he was still a kid at the time, and no matter how smart, a kid is still a kid. It would seem that yesterday's test had shaken Bakugo's worldview, not terribly, but enough that the cumulative effect it had with other events of the last few years have pushed Bakugo to the edge. As Aizawa watched as Midoriya took down Bakugo in 2 seconds flat and knocked him out, he couldn't help but sigh. It would seem that he had to deal with Bakugo's temper sooner rather than later, preferably before he murdered someone. Todoroki Shoto was an observant guy. He had been trained since childhood to be as perfect a hero as possible by his father Endeavor. He couldn't help but feel that all the pain and suffering he and his family had endured was for nothing as he watched the scene playing on the screen in the battle center. Izuku Midoriya truly was Rikudou's brother. When he first laid eyes on him in that classroom, he couldn't help but think that he had been deceived. They looked almost exactly the same, save for the hair of course, but in almost every other respect they were vastly different. What truly differentiated them were their personalities. From what little he had interacted with Rikudou, the man seemed to exude charisma and arrogance. Though, given the level of his power, that arrogance was not undeserved. The quirk test was a true eye-opener. He had glimpsed Rikudou's prowess on the TV from several media coverages of his heroic acts and from watching last year's sports festival. It was true that while Midoriya did not take the absolute highest scores in every test, but he was always among the top 3 and most often than not. That was frustrating to see him perform so well and to see his years of training go to waste, but there was nothing he could do. Izuku Midoriya shared his blood and power with someone that took out his father in a single attack in a fair fight. A feat that not even All Might could replicate. Madara Midoriya was also reported to have fought and won a training engagement with All Might himself. At the moment, in terms of raw power, Madara was the number 1. He had surpassed All Might before he even turned 15. Such was how his father described him, and after meeting him in person, Shoto could say that he was correct. When he first realized who Izuku Midoriya was, Shoto was eager to see his performances. After all, Madara had an unacknowledged bet with his father that he would lose to his little brother. It was thus that Shoto decided to observe the younger Midoriya. Izuku was different from his brother. He was shy and kind, lacking the arrogance and confidence of his elder sibling. He did not lack, however, in fighting prowess. He was clearly a skilled martial artist to have incapacitated Bakugo in a second without the use of his quirk. Still, it mattered not. Shoto would prove his superiority using only his eyes. It's strange to think that only a few days have passed since Izuku's first year at UA began. This being said, it was only logical that some manner of enemy action would befall the school sooner or later. Honestly, if I didn't know better, I'd say that I was reborn in a shonen manga. I was having a good day busting up a drug trafficking ring. Honestly, it surprised me just how little of the hero population was willing to dirty their hands with this sort of action. Though after I got access to the Hero Commission's classified files, all became oh so very clear. The current system was corrupted and weighed down by unnecessary people and baggage. Over the years, the admittance tests to hero courses and the license exams themselves have fallen to a surprisingly low standard. In fact, my hero license exam could be considered difficult since only 50% of the participants passed. 50% out of more than 1,000 participants passed. In a twisted way, my choice to be heavily involved with the police and Officer Tsukauchi in particular boosted my popular approval ratings. A few major events and I'll literally be the youngest ever to breach the top 10 list. Just like Hawks had done. Only this time I did it without the Hero Commission pulling strings behind the back of the citizens. Back to the present though. The enemy action that I was talking about was the destruction, or more particularly the disintegration of UA's main gate barrier. So, what do you think, Rikudou? Asked Nezu. Since I was technically working, I had to come to the school dressed in my Mjolnir armor, though to be completely frank I've been virtually living at Might Tower over the last month working cases. It's incredible just how little resistance these people have to the Sharingan's hypnotic effects. I turned to the diminutive principle. This was the work of a powerful quirk. The metal isn't so much disintegrated as it is heavily oxidized, something that is indicative of degradation quirk of some kind, I said. We checked the reporters. None had a quirk such as you described, said Aizawa. Then this was clearly enemy action. One aimed at the school in general and at several people in particular, I said. Do you have anything to use as proof for your theory? Asked Nezu. No, this is based only on my intuition and whatever meager conclusions I can draw from the remains of this destroyed gate, I said. I see. If I may, Rikudou, I would like to make a request, said Nezu. It was thus how I ended up in this predicament. I was currently standing next to Aizawa, in front of Class 1A, under a transformation technique pretending to be a second-year management department student that was writing an article on how students train under all might for the school paper that will, of course, be made available to the general public. Fortunately, this was a recognized sting operation and all it cost me was my dignity. Fuck my life. Good news is that I can get some blackmail on Izuku in case I need it.